heard of it?
I mean, once you have the words Tegan and Sara and Catfishing, I'm pretty much in. I'm one of those people that fell in love with Tegan and Sara's music, in college, sent literally my father their songs to check out this song, it's so good. So when Jenny Ellis, who I worked with on Britney versus Spears, said that, basically Tegan had come to her with a story that she wanted to make into a podcast, and I was like, no podcast. We're gonna do the documentary. And I could not be more thrilled with the result. It was really a difficult process because it was an ongoing investigation, but we're here and really happy.
Your films often deal with the lives of celebrities who have had their personal lives affected by how famous they are. When you talk about these subjects, how do you gain the trust of people and then still kind of keep your voice as a filmmaker and creator as well?
I think, I was taught we're not equal to our good or worst action, right? And so how do you approach each subject, each human with respect? And that's what I try to bring to my films, a sort of radical empathy. And for the Britney Spears project, I never actually met Britney Spears, which I would give everything in my bank account plus my left hand to meet her. Call me if you're available, Britney. But trust is trust, and you have to show that you're trustworthy through the process. And you may trust me at the beginning, but it's if you trust me at the end. And that's what's significant to me.
Tegan and Sara, we're seeing so much now with kind of newer artists speak out about parasocial relationships and kind of the lack of boundaries, not just online, but just in kind of some of their fandom. But do you think that, almost a decade out of when this started for you, that some of these loopholes in cybersecurity still remain? Do you see kind of the continuation of artists not choosing to engage with their fans in this way because there's just not enough protection?
Yeah, obviously it's evolving. I think a lot of the recent conversation around parasocial relationships and some of the darker sides of fan behavior and obsession have been vocalized by amazing artists like obviously, Risky, Luna. But if you go back through history, every single artist goes through this, feels this, says this. Some of us have been trained to ignore it, to just put up with it. I know at the height of Sarah and I's career, sort of in the 2012 to 2015 range, we had to pay for our own security. We had to deal with all of this quietly, and I don't know if it's clearly not just women who are experiencing this for queer people, but you're sort of trained by your record label, by your publicists, by your managers, not to call out inappropriate behavior. I always hark back to early press hours in 2004, spin reviews of Gels called us a wicked folk nightmare, Pitchfork called us tampon rock. A prominent New York magazine said we were fuckable. And when we went to our teams and said that we were found inappropriate, everybody just told us to be glad we were getting reviews. And I think that the generation now, which I mostly think is amazing and awesome, when they're annoyed and pissed off by something, they go on TikTok and they're like, what sucks? The fact that you take my music for free. What sucks? The fact that you interrupt me and my family at dinner. And my butt tightens. But I immediately think, but I was taught to fear being honest about what it feels like. And so anyway, I think Fanatical touches on that, but I think that it's just part of a wider conversation that is happening right now in the sphere. And I do think artists are going to have to put up with that stuff, even though our queen has said not to do it. But the reality is that when you are at the height of your peak fame and your fans are so hyped, it's hard to have a rational conversation with them about what is appropriate and not. But I think as a society we can have a bigger conversation about the systemic problems in place, about how to protect artists, how to protect ourselves. We all have an addiction to social media and feel like shit when we look at it. We're all bullying each other and saying things we wouldn't to each other's faces. And I think that as a society we need to think about that and talk about it. It's bigger than the music industry. So.
I really want to make sure the audience has a chance to ask some questions. I'm sure we have some. So I want to turn it it over to you. Yes, right there.
Erin, I wondered what first of all, love it, but wondered at the end what the investigation is, ... Does that mean there's a part two?
So maybe Jenny as well. So when the documentary says kind of to be continued or it's still ongoing, does that mean that there's a part two?
I love you, yes I do. To be determined. That's why I sang that song. I personally would really like to. I think that there is more there. But I think that one of the things that we were grappling with was that even the person that was big Tegan, had some serious mental health issues, and so we were able to uncover things, but no film is worth really hurting someone. Yeah. And so we made the decision collectively that although there was some clear evidence about who it was a huge risk. And so if there's a safe way to do that, I would like to. Sorry? Yeah. If there's an ethical way to do that. But I also think we nailed this one, so.
Piggybacking off of that, I'm wondering about character JT in the film, and who was obviously somebody else incredibly hurt by what they went through, and I'm sure that was a kind of difficult series of conversations. And we talked about ethically kind of navigating that. What was that process like, not just for them, but other people in the film?
I mean, I think we were really lucky to have such an amazing team, with Erin at the lead, the compassion, security, ethics, these were all the things that we talked about. I mean, nobody was doing the film with the hope of unmasking someone, vindication, or hurting anyone. I think all the conversations that started with Erin, Alyssa, and Jenny were had from a place of, we don't want anyone to feel dumb. We don't want anyone to feel embarrassed or feel, I hope every single person who agreed to be in the film watches it and feels vindicated. And, I think this film absolutely solidly sells the idea that these people fell for this because it was such a complicated and well thought out and performed act of catfishing and deception. Obviously, the conversations between me and JT and me and Tara were the hardest to have. They were extremely uncomfortable. This morning I had to take Advil because my jaw was so tight from watching it in the theater last night. You can sort of see me through the film getting profied. I had hives. It was so stressful. I'm such a people pleaser. I hate that people hate me. I hate that these people were so mad at me. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to make the film, was that I wanted people to understand that I was a victim too, and that I did the best I could, and that I couldn't go and personally apologize for things I didn't do. But I was blown away by JT's bravery, by her agreeing to come and have the conversation, because there were a lot of victims who had romantic relationships or long-term relationships with 15 and could not come and have that conversation on camera. So I felt really grateful to be able to have that conversation with JT, and I've spoken to JT recently. JT has seen the film and is happy with the way that she was able to tell her story, and there's nothing that makes me feel more relief than knowing that. But those conversations were really hard. It's not, as somebody who prides themselves on being a kind person and doing the best I can, to know that there were all these people that thought that I was a piece of shit liar who was ruining underage trans was difficult too. Sarah's that, but I'm not.
Part two. It's a weird twist.
Question for Sara, obviously been
Why are you here?
we talk a lot about how extroverted Tegan is, and you're one about all those things. What was your experience sort of going through this? Obviously caring for Tegan, caring for the people that it's impacted, and you kind of taking this. We don't know whether you took sort of a slightly lefty, but what's your experience in sort of watching that occur?
What was your experience in watching that occur, not being the target of all this?
I mean, at times I felt targeted, you know, because, especially during these years, when Tegan and I were together 300 days a year, you know, what happens to her is kind of happening to me. And, I mean, my instinct always was actually to protect Tegan, and I had far less empathy than Tegan ever had. It made me feel scared and angry, and I tended to pull away. And it wasn't a sort of like, I'm mad at all the fans. It was more like, I don't know who is doing this, so it's easier for me to protect myself from everyone, which is my own work and has sort of been a process for me. And I feel fine about it. I love making things and I love being in front of an audience. But I definitely learned from this that there was going to be ways that I was going to live my life differently, and I wanted Tegan to follow suit. So it's, you know, it's caused tension between us because I think Tegan leaned into it. She sort of was like, I'm not gonna let this change me. I would be like, oh, why not? Talk about this? Like, but it's really interesting because when Tegan told me that she wanted to do this, I was completely okay with it. But just like Tegan, I am desperately afraid of upsetting people. And I'm just relieved, Erin and, you know, Jenny and the whole team, that I've only seen this so many handful of times. I've tried to stay as sort of like removed from it as possible to hopefully lend a fresh perspective and, you know, support without being too like in the weeds. And I feel good about this. I went to bed last night feeling like we've done the best that we can do to tell people what was going on and hopefully participate in a larger conversation that's happening. I am more introverted than Tegan, but I think we've taken that to, you know, almost a comic level. I mean, I am just as big a ham as Tegan, and I do love being on stage and whatever. So I just want to say to everybody who's worried that Tegan's been keeping me hostage here in the band, I've been doing this willingly.
Oh, hi. Hi again. If you find out who Fegan is that something that you would, one, share with people, and two, take kind of legal action if you're able to, if they've like done enough to do that?
So if you do find out who Fegan is that something that you would share with everyone or take legal action potentially, like, you're able to do so?
Citizen's Arrest by Erin Lee. We were never interested in pressing charges or coming after Fegan. When we originally, back in 2011 and 12, when all of our physical evidence led us to the UK, to Joanne, we had no interest in ruining someone's life.
We just wanted it to stop.
Yeah, we kind of wanted it to stop, which is why we just did cease and desist. And I think like Erin touched on, like there was no part of us, once we did have a new profile and a lot more physical evidence, as we got near to the end of this film, I think Erin very empathetically and humanely pivoted and understood that this was not about vindication or a vendetta or hurting someone. I think all I could say that all of us on the stage would like to talk to fake Tegan, and certainly one person on the stage believes I've talked to fake Tegan a number of times, because I've also been catfished. So, if that person wanted to talk, I think we could find a way to have that conversation, and certainly I don't see a reason why we wouldn't share it if we felt like it was appropriate, but I can say for myself personally, I like to kind of move on. And having met so many of the victims, it feels like that's what they want to, and I'd like to honor that. But it has been really wild this last couple weeks since we started posting, like me and Jenny and Erin have a chat, and it's crazy every time we post about it, people are in the comments being like, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, and I also don't want to silence people from wanting to tell their stories, so.
I also just want to give Jenny the chance to speak. She's such an incredible part of this. Everybody thinks
Yeah, you have a question for Jenny?
Yeah. I mean, you were there that day when we were interviewing Tara. Like at the time, how did it feel, and what was it like in the room for you, going through this entire experience, and like how you felt at the end of it?
I mean, the first part, the phone call with Tara was such an intense experience, and I was just sort of in the background to
You can see her in
make,
the,
make notes, and I think, well, I'll just go back and say the moment when the upside down smiley text came in as we were all on set that day was, truly a gasp-inducing moment for all of us, because we were so upset and stressed out about the way to interact with Tara and to be objective and give Tara space to tell their truth and us to respond to it moment by moment. But when they were clearly toying with us and sent that, it just, my head exploded. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen happen in a work context. But still keeping an open mind throughout all of that, I think was really a big mission for that phase of making the film, was interacting with all of these people who had their own complicated relationships with what had happened, and trying to incorporate that into our understanding of what went wrong here and how this was possible and what does it mean, and trying to question our own assumptions about what people's behavior meant, because obviously there are lots of different interpretations of people's behavior when they're in a stressful situation like this. But that upside down smiley, I don't know how y'all felt when you saw it, but it was just a terrifying
it was like the
emoji.
person in Saw.
Yeah, it was just like, what does it mean?
I was like, should I call you? And they're like, no, you need something to give me to bait you into having a conversation. I was like, okay, what do we got? What do we got?
Yeah, so we arrived at the end of it sort of, definitely at the beginning when we first started talking about this, we thought, we can figure this out, like I remember Erin and I being like, we can figure this out, and it was so much more complicated than we anticipated, and the super expert, like true, former FBI kind of people and other investigators who were helping us, even they were like, this is so complex, this is, we've never seen anything like this. So, one thing we can say that's a positive for Fake Tegan is that they
Good work.
are a maestro of manipulation.
I actually think there's something beautiful about, I was at Tegan is very prolific, and you managed to find someone very prolific to be
Do we have time for one more question? Yes, right there.
I just wanted to say thank you for your vulnerability and honesty for you and all of your circle for this. Very much appreciated. Not necessary, but very much appreciated. I just wanted to know, what is your hope for some current Tegan and Sara fans who just watch this going forward? What do you want us to keep in mind going forward as we go to your concerts, go to other concerts, and for other artists?
That's a great
Question, what do you want current Sara and Tegan fans to keep in mind going forward when they go to your concerts or engage with you?
It's actually a really great question, and I would say Sarah and I hope, and again, Erin, leading from Erin, but everyone who was raised in the kid Jenny, everyone kept this in mind the entire time, that this was not a calling out of Tegan and Sara and the fan base, and this wasn't, Sarah and I don't dislike our fan base, we love our fan base, but we're human beings who have experienced negative things, and we felt it was okay for us to say it in this context. But I think moving forward, I hope that connection we have, that intimacy we have with our audience can remain. I think we've built back post Fake Tegan a genuine connection with our audience. We try to find spaces that work better for us and formats, and just community again. Part of it was starting the Tegan and Sara Foundation, some of it is being on Substack. A return to our roots in terms of how we make music and where we tour and how much we tour. We're managing our physical and mental health better. And so I hope Tegan and Sara fans move forward know that we still got their backs, we're still looking out for them, we still really care, and we're deeply invested in this amazing connection we've had. We wouldn't have a job without you. We wouldn't have the amazing lives we've had without you. But also look out for each other and take care of each other. And we heard it again and again. From before we even sold the film, our first conversation that we talked to, when we talked to Julie, and then there were a few other people we spoke to, they all said that they felt like this could have happened, that this could be me, because we'd always been so open, I'd always been so friendly, I'd always been so nice to our audience. That's never gonna change. I do feel that way for the people who like our music. I feel that way for everyone on earth, I don't want to be a jerk or an asshole, so I think that hasn't changed to Sarah, I am, but everyone else. But, so yeah, I hope moving forward, and we're still approachable, you can still say hi, you can still come to shows and love our music, and you can still comment online, we're not mad at you. But take care of each other and watch our vision, and listen to your guts. Also, the victims told Erin and Jenny and I, like, that they ignored their instincts. That there was part of them that knew that it couldn't be me, and they kind of ignored that, and they really wanted to believe it was me, and it felt really special. That's normal. That's how we feel. We want that. We were looking for that in music and art. We were looking for that on the internet. The internet is a scary hellscape, so also be careful, you know.
Takeaways of the internet is scary.
The internet is scary.
Thank you, because that's what my work will be for the next 20 years.
Keep using the internet, thank you.
Thank you for opening up, and thank you for telling this story in such a respectful and thoughtful manner, and sharing it with Toronto. Thanks for your question.